It's a
mind and
great
your
question,
soul.
man. So let's jump into this. Let's jump into the book and let's get into Second Corinthians
Yes, sir.
chapter 2, and we're gonna read verses 1 through 10. And I'll go ahead and read it for you, brother.
Yes, sir.
And it says, "But I determined
Oh, here.
this with myself, that I would not come again to you in heaviness. For if I make you sorry, who
Mm-hmm.
is he then that maketh me glad? But the same which is made sorry by me. And I wrote this same unto you, lest when I came, I should not sorrow from them of whom I ought to rejoice, having confidence in you all, that my joy is the joy of you all. For out of much affliction and
Mm-hmm.
anguish of heart I wrote unto you with many tears, not that ye should be grieved, but that
Uh-huh.
ye might know the love which I have more abundantly unto you. But if any have caused grief, he
Mm-hmm.
have not grieved me, but in part that I may not overcharge you all. Sufficient to such a man is this punishment,
Mm-hmm.
which was afflicted of many, so that contrariwise ye ought rather to forgive him and comfort him, lest perhaps such as one should be swallowed up with overmuch sorrow. Wherefore I beseech you that ye
Mm-hmm.
would confirm your love toward him. For to this end also did I write, that I might know the proof of you, whether ye be obedient in all things. To whom ye forgive anything, I forgive also. For if I forgave anything, to whom I forgave it, for your sakes forgive I it in the person of Christ.
Listen, man, this whole passage is about an offender, offending people, about the recovering somebody, about let's go and heal these individuals. I'm teaching y'all that this is what it's about. This is what it's about. It ain't about, man, somebody, man, being isolated and they did wrong and we just throwing them in the trash. It's about us
Right.
healing and helping. Paul even said in verse 4, it said, "For out of much affliction and anguish of heart I wrote unto you with many tears." Now he ain't the one offended, but it's an offense
Right.
between two other parties. But he's saying, hey, let's solve this. Because out of anguish and affliction I wrote unto you with many tears. Not that ye should be grieved, but that ye might know the love which I had more abundantly for you. But if any have caused grief, he have not grieved me, but in part that I may not overcharge you. Such sufficient to such a man is the punishment which is inflicted on many. Listen, man, when somebody damaged and some went wrong and some not right, listen, and especially in a
Right.
group, it affects everybody. So to be open and honest and vulnerable, really, man, hey,
Yes, sir.
that's a big thing. To really say, hey, man, let's fix it. You got to be
You do.
vulnerable to fix certain things. And this is what we seeing here. He said, verse 6 says, "Sufficient to such a man is the punishment, which was inflicted of many." And this is what we really kind of sometimes don't know, man. When you honest or something go wrong or things ain't right, it takes a big,
Man,
strong
my
person to
goodness.
say,
Yes,
"I'm
sir.
sorry."
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? To be vulnerable, to be open and say, "Man, hey, man, I'm out the way." It takes even bigger people around them to not beat you down with your errors or your mistakes or the things went left. Man, the book is about forgiveness, recovery. It's about healing. It's about building up. It ain't about
Right.
tearing everybody down all the time. Man, listen, to get into stages like this when you really saying, hey, man, I'm urging y'all to straighten it out, to fix it, because it's causing everybody grief. It's causing everybody problems. Man, how vulnerable you got to be, how open you got to be, how transparent you got to be,
Man.
how humble you got to be. All this
No.
stuff ain't taught to us. And especially, man, listen, man, if it's men, it definitely ain't. Because I ain't going to let nobody punk me. I ain't no punk. I ain't going to let nobody try to embarrass me or check me.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? All these things build up to people fighting, uh, murder, death, you hurting somebody, you getting
Yeah.
all of it build up to that. But here he said, hey man, fix it. You gotta be vulnerable, you gotta be strong, you gotta be really locked in to saying, I wanna be um, a person that solves some of these issues. That's what Paul doing, man. He trying to mediate, hey man, let's fix it. If I did something, you know what I'm saying? Hey man, in verse 9, he says, verse 8 says, wherefore I beseech you that ye will confirm your love towards him. Man, how vulnerable you gotta be to confirm
Man, you
your
got to
love
be
towards another
vulnerable,
man
bro.
or another individual. I'm just saying, especially somebody, man, that you ain't, you know, you know, you ain't in like no family relationship or some other
Yeah,
kind of relationship or spouse or something. Man, you gotta
you
be
do.
extremely vulnerable.
It take
But that takes
absolutely.
strength.
Yes.
That takes a lot of
Encourage.
strength. You know what I'm saying? Encourage. All these things that we ain't really been practicing or they taught us or we learned or we really tried to
Right.
exercise in life. But that's what the scripture teaches. Verse 9 says, for to this end also did I write, that I might know the proof of you, whether you will be obedient in all things. See, that's the problem. Some of us
Some
are
things.
obedient in some things. But when it comes to you, some things, you serve
Right.
God when it's convenient for you. But when you got to be honest, transparent, vulnerable, when you got to have these attributes that you need to go to the next stage in your journey towards salvation, towards being a better servant, oh man, you ain't really, you don't want to go that far. You don't want to humble yourself to really get to that point. That's how I say, man, listen, he talking about being a servant here, confirming your love,
Right.
forgiving somebody. Man, about man, what this will do to the relationship between the brothers. Man,
Yeah.
it's gonna make us stronger and better. If we
And
really
and you know what's heavy here? This is also going to lead us into the next scripture. But one thing I caught here in verse 4, he says, for out of much affliction and anguish of heart, I wrote unto you with many tears. He's letting the Corinthians know he was crying.
come on,
But
bro.
men are afraid to cry in
Yeah,
front of other people, not even just other men. Like some men afraid to cry in front of their wife because we
come
have
on.
been taught if you cry, you soft. If you confess, you weak.
Soft. You weak.
But I'm
Weak.
starting to wonder now
Yeah.
if I'm weak for not crying.
That's what I'm saying. Come on, bro. We trying to save
You
face.
got it
We
on,
got that
right?
mask on,
But
bro.
Paul's like, he said with many tears, in order to have tears, you have to cry. Not
Yeah.
that ye should be grieved, but that ye might know the love which
Yeah.
I have more. But I'm crying because I love you.
That's what
I'm
I'm saying.
crying because not because I'm
Come
a
on, man.
punk, not because I'm soft, not because you know what I'm saying. I feel like I'm beneath you, but because I love you. I'm hurt. I feel for
Love.
you.
Yep.
That's love,
Yep.
though. I'm long suffering with you. I'm
Yep.
trying to help you carry your burden. You get what I'm saying? But today, bro, this
Yeah.
is looked at as soft. Everything Paul went through. Oh, he's soft. He just let them stone him. He's
Come
soft.
on, bro.
He just let them beat him up in the synagogue. He's soft. He a buster. He ain't got no hands. That's how we would talk about this man today.
That's what I'm
He's
saying. That's
soft.
why we'll talk
He
about it
would be
today.
a meme.
Yeah.
But how
Yep.
hard is it? It's crazy how it's more harder for a man to be vulnerable than it is for him to just confess how he feels. It's easier just to confess. It takes more energy to pretend than it does
Yeah.
to confess.
Bro, listen. We wore out,
All
man,
the
because we got
time.
our guard up all the time. Bro, you got your guard up all the time. In your house, at your job, around your friends, in the
All the
street,
time.
randomness. uh, eh, all the time. You got your guard up. Man, what's the Hey man, I'm sorry. I apologize. Forgive me. I didn't mean to. Man, bro, years ago, I had a man say, man, a man don't tell another man he's sorry. I just was just looking. I was just
I
looking
mean,
off into the distance like,
a man don't
where the
tell
hidden
another man
camera at?
he's sorry. So we don't
Go tell another
apologize?
man he's sorry. I'm like, I was just looking like,
Like, I don't know if you know what to
I
say to
was
you, dude.
like, man, if you offend somebody or if you, and I'm not saying that you weak, it ain't weak. Oh man, I'm sorry.
Hey,
You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
I'm sorry I bumped into
My
you. I'm
apologies,
sorry I
man.
stepped on your shoe. Or, oh, I'm sorry I made my apology. But it's that's holding on to, man, all holding up an image of nothing.
See,
Nothing.
and what's interesting, if Paul cried and the homies found out, hey, you soft. But you know what's interesting? We got an example of the one who created everything that was made. We have an example of
Come on.
a man that rose people from the dead. We have an example of a man that was rose from the dead himself. We have an example of a man
Yes,
that
sir.
spit on the ground and took mud and rubbed it on another man's eyes, and it gave him back his sight. An example of a man
Yes,
that
sir.
told another man to
Yes, sir.
get up and walk, and he walked.
Yes, sir.
We
Yes,
have an
sir.
example of
Yes,
him
sir.
crying too. So my question to y'all who think
Yeah.
men that cry and is vulnerable are soft, do you think Jesus is soft too? Let's go to John
Come on.
11, chapter 11, and we're going to read verse 30 through 36. And I got a question for y'all who think that if you vulnerable, you soft. Is Jesus soft? Is the one that your salvation depends on if your name is written in his book, is he soft? That's a serious question
Come on,
because
bro.
if the goal is
Come
to
on,
be
bro.
Christ-like, I'm just
Come on.
asking a question.
Come on. Hey, that's a good question, brother.
I'm just asking
That's
a
a good
question.
question. Listen. Hey, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that's a good question because this man
Everything that
made
was
everything
made.
that was made. Everything
Yes.
that was made, this man made. And I'm saying, bro, Jesus all the time, man, did things that will make him in
Soft.
today's world soft. Soft. But
Yep,
this is the
bro.
captain
If
of
your
our
name is not
salvation.
written in his book, you in trouble.
Come on. Come on.